Welcome back to Last Life Ever. My name is Jeff Holz, and that is Jillian Sidoti. And you know what? Today we're going to do something that we haven't done in a really long time, and I'm super excited about that. And that is we're going to do an episode of Last Life Ever where it's just Jeff and Jillian. So, Jillian, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about something really exciting to me, which is how to plan an epic vacation. Because Jeff, you and I are in the middle of planning an epic vacation of sorts.
Yeah, and you're going to get to hear all about it right after this.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
I am so excited about this vacation that we're going on, Jillian.
It's a pretty epic vacation.
I love that you say epic because you hate the word epic.
I hate the word epic, but honestly, it's not an inappropriate use.
I know. That's why I like that you say epic because, people are always like, I had an epic discovery or like, I had an epic experience. And that might be true, but the definition of epic is what, Jillian?
It's long.
Long, yes. And in this case, we are actually planning a long vacation. In fact, by the time this episode comes out, it's going to be almost time for us to leave. So shortly after this episode, you might even hear how it went, but we are recording now at the end of March, and in mid to late-ish May, we're going to start our vacation. And it's really interesting because we're doing really two separate vacations with overlap. So it's going to be a little complicated to explain, but the short version is Jillian and I are going to Bali. Why are we going to Bali?
Because my kids have a school trip to Bali, so we decided to tag along, which I'm sure they're super excited about.
I mean, what red-blooded young man wouldn't want his mom and his mom's bestie to hang out with them in Bali?
I know, and their little brother. So
Yeah, right.
My two kids, they're 16 and 13 years old. They go to an international school based in Dubai called School of Humanity. It's a great school. Every year they do a class trip and they choose a new place in the world every time. Last year they went to Tenerife in the Canary Islands, Spain. And this year they're going to go to Bali, and their trip is a little different than our trip. Their trip is more about, education and learning how to take care of the earth. They're going to visit a school called Green School out there, and that's where they're going to be staying. And actually, we're just traveling there together. Jeff and my crew, my three boys and I, are going to do some fun stuff. We're going to make our way to Bali, and then when we get to Bali, they're going to go do their thing. And Jeff, my youngest son, and I are all going to adventure around Bali. And before anybody asks, and I just want to make it very clear, no, we're not in a relationship, Jeff and I, other than
We're friends, Jillian. That's a relationship.
Business, and friends.
Yes.
And we're friends. My husband hates long plane rides. Can't stand them. He used to travel. He was a musician, and he was a touring musician, and he would tour to South Africa quite frequently. I wouldn't say quite frequently, but like he did once a year for a while there. And he would just come back a miserable person, and he just doesn't want to go on long plane rides. So when he goes on plane ride, he's like, it's got to be less than 6 hours for him, and this was not going to be less than 6 hour plane ride.
No, in fact, just to explain how epic this vacation is, because I don't think just going to Bali for 5 days is an epic vacation, but
No, it's
we're going to be
not.
in Bali from like the 27th of May to the 1st of June, which is great. But we're not leaving on the 26th of May to go to Bali. I don't know when you're leaving exactly, Jillian, but I'm leaving on the 23rd of May, and I'm flying from Chattanooga to Tokyo, Japan. Are you going to Tokyo?
I am going to Tokyo, but first we're actually we're going from Puerto Rico and we're leaving from the Aguadilla airport, not San Juan. We're going to fly to Tampa. From Tampa, we're going to fly to London. We're going to spend 2 days in London, and then we're going to meet you in Tokyo. And I just want to say before we continue on, I did most of this trip, and that's just the beginning of the trip, on airline points.
That's great. I didn't do that at all. I paid for it with actual cash. It was very annoying, but I did do some cool stuff, right? So the I got the Delta One suites for my flight from Minneapolis all the way to Tokyo, 15 and a half hours in a lay down suite. And I got a really good deal on that because I bought a one-way ticket, which is, cheaper than round trip, obviously. But I also didn't buy Delta One suites. I used a global upgrade certificate that I got from all my previous travels. So I was able to buy a cheaper cabin fare and get the expensive fancy suite.
Oh my God.
I'm excited about that. That's like for most people, that would be like a once in a lifetime experience. It's actually my second time doing a 15-hour flight in Delta One suites because I flew back from Australia in that last year. Same strategy. Got it one direction on the with the global upgrade certificate from Delta. So that's going to be really exciting. So okay, so you're going to do 2 days in London. And then you're going to go from London to Tokyo, and we're going to do what, like I think it's 4 days in Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm going to do it's about 4 days in Tokyo, and then we're going to Hong Kong. Now we paid for that ticket because it was super cheap.
Yeah, really cheap, flying from Tokyo to Bali with a stopover in Hong Kong. And I think long enough that we're going to get out of the airport and be able to have dinner in Hong Kong that evening. So that should be really exciting. And what are you most excited about Hong Kong? Because I have something specific I'm excited about.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you have something specific because I've planned nothing. I was kind of going with the flow on that one. That was Jeff's brilliant idea. So I was like, sounds good. Let's do it. Whatever it might be.
Yeah, well, it was more like there was a cheap flight with a layover in Hong Kong. It wasn't really a brilliant idea. No, so I'm just excited about the food, actually. Like, I know that seems weird, but like, authentic Hongkonese food, whatever that is. I got to figure it out yet, but I'm thinking it's a noodle dish or something. There's going to be something that's famous in Hong Kong, and that's what I'm excited about. Because we're not going to have time to really do that much, but the thing I'm actually probably even more excited about is the Hong Kong airport itself. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but it's consistently rated in the top 5 most interesting airports in the world. I don't know how that's even a thing, but apparently it's really cool. And I'm actually going later in the trip to one of the other top 5 most interesting airports in the world. So that's pretty exciting too. Because that's the thing. We're not just going to Bali. I think
we might even just end up hanging out at the airport if that's the case. But we'll have to see what the lay of the land is. I mean, from what I understand, and I've actually never been to Asia. So this is the first time for us.
Ooh, a new continent for you too.
A whole new continent. And it's a new continent for my kids. My kids have been to Europe before. They've never been to England. So that's going to be exciting. They've always wanted to go to England. I have no idea what we're going to do when we get there. They all wanted to go to Tokyo. So they are excited about Tokyo.
So in Tokyo, do they have something specific the kids want to do?
Well, there were 2 things, and I actually, unfortunately, don't think we're going to be able to do either of them. The first one was go to the sushi restaurant, the Michelin star restaurant that's in the subway station.
Oh, it's actually a ramen restaurant, right? It's a Michelin star ramen restaurant.
Is there a ramen restaurant too? Because I know there's a sushi restaurant too.
So interesting side note about Tokyo. I didn't know this before. There are more Michelin star restaurants in Tokyo than all 4 countries in the world.
Yeah.
More in Tokyo itself than almost every country in the world.
It's just, that's amazing to me, like that it beats out France and stuff like that.
Well, it doesn't beat out France. Tokyo doesn't, but Japan itself, actually, I believe, is the most Michelin star restaurants per capita in the world. I think there might be.
Explain that to me, because I thought it was. I thought Japan had the most Michelin star restaurants.
They may have the most. I don't know for sure. But I definitely think that when we're in Tokyo, we should at least go to one Michelin star restaurant, because I've never been to a Michelin star restaurant. I think also we should consider the idea of taking the bullet train to Kyoto, because I heard Kyoto is really cool.
Jeff, we're in it to win it, buddy. We're in it to win it. I told you, we'll do whatever. I've got 3 hardy travelers traveling with me. They might whine a little. They are kids, but they're pretty hardy. So
yeah, well, having traveled with your oldest son before, I can tell you he probably will whine a little, but it'll be the fun kind of silly whining. I can't speak for the other 2 children, but I can say that, when we went to Tanzania with Tyler, it was really exciting and we had a great time, and I really enjoyed getting to know him. Yeah. So,
yeah.
So I'm
and the thing is, the reason why, people are questioning my decision to take my 8-year-old with me, because it's not his school trip. And it's not, and he's only 8. So why am I taking an 8-year-old on this amazing trip? And he'll actually be 9 by the time this happens. But the reason is because he still complains to me and Jeff about he loves animals more than his older brother does. And how dare we not take him on that trip?
He actually said that to me at Thanksgiving when I was at your house.
Did he really?
He goes, Mr. Jeff, how come you didn't take me to Tanzania to see the elephants and the lions? And I was like, I don't know. Ask your mom, buddy. Ask your mom.
He's still mad about that. So, so I felt like I just can't leave him behind again, considering that he still remembers that. And that was over 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Well, and another thing to remember is too, like, I don't know how it is for most people out there, but like when we're planning trips as a parent, and I'm not a parent, but I think about this if I were a parent, I think about what did I remember from when I was a kid, and the things I remember from when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old are the trips that we took. I don't remember like what I studied in school or like day-to-day stuff, but I do remember when we went out west and we went to Mammoth Caves, when we went to the Badlands, to Yellowstone. I remember those things. So yeah, he might not appreciate it as much at 9 as he might at 29, right? But you actually have this interesting window where, like, if he gets much older, he'll probably appreciate it less than he does now. Because kids get kind of moody about stuff when they're like some of your older kids. Like I even I'm sure Tyler's not complaining that you took him to Tanzania, but I bet that he didn't appreciate it as much as Nikki would have had we taken him.
Probably. Yeah, but also because Tyler's more of a homebody too than my little one. But okay, so we're going to Tokyo, then we're going to Hong Kong for 6 hours, then we're getting to Bali, and we're going to spend 5 days in Bali.
Right. And by the way, I'm planning on scuba diving in Bali. I haven't told you this yet, but the diving is supposed to be really good. So I need to take off in the morning one day and go scuba diving, even if you can't do it, because you won't be able to, because you're going to have your kid with you. And also last time we went scuba diving, it didn't exactly work out that well for you.
No, I threw up all over the place.
Not all over the place. You threw up while you were underwater into your own mouthpiece.
It was so great.
And then when we got out, I have this great photo of you. I don't even know if you know this, but I took a photo of you. You were laying in the grass saying,
I have it.
I'm so miserable. Why would I do this? And you really look like you were dead afterwards. So I don't believe I'll take you scuba diving. It might impact my experience a little bit. But anyway, so when we're planning this, so this is one of the pro tips for people, right? When you're planning a long trip, you have to plan exciting things to do, and you have to plan downtime. So one of the things we're going to do in Bali, and I haven't even told Jillian this yet, is we're going to have a day where we do nothing, right? Nice. Like where we just stay at a resort and hang out at the beach, maybe drink a cocktail or two, have a nice meal, but where we really do nothing, because it's important to decompress if you're going to travel for more than a couple of weeks, and we are going to travel more than a couple of weeks, at least I am. So we're going to have one day to decompress. We're also going to try to go to the mountains, because I've heard really good things about the mountains in Bali. And for people who don't know, Bali is a small island in Indonesia. And so, it's just going to be really exciting. It's tropical. It's beautiful. It's got all kinds of interesting cultural things. It's also very affordable. So if you're going to go to Southeast Asia anyway, like stopping in Bali might make good sense. And then what, Jillian? After we leave Bali, what are you doing?
Well, this is where Jeff and I say goodbye, but we don't end the trip, because actually the kids, I asked them straight out, do you want to go to Singapore do you want to go to Korea or do you want to go to Australia? And both my older children, even though they have a special desire to go to Korea, both of them said they wanted to go to Australia. And I also did that, Jeff, based on your recommendation of going to Australia and that how great that would be for kids their age. So we're just going to spend like 2 days in Sydney, and we're going to concentrate our time during that time to see animals. I mean, we're going to do the big red bus tour like you recommended.
Yeah. So the double-decker bus, great. You can do that for like almost an entire day, seeing all of Sydney. 2 different routes there. Fantastic. The Sydney Zoo, of course, really, really nice. The aquarium's really good. So you'll enjoy that. If you want to see wild kangaroos, though, here's a pro tip for people visiting Sydney. I think you can see them if you go up to the Blue Mountains. If you go to the Blue Mountains by train and do some hiking up there, you're very likely to see wild kangaroos. You might see wallabies. They might not be actual kangaroos, but you're going to see little hopping marsupials, and your kids will be.
We're probably going to have to pass on that because it's 2 days. The kids are going to be tired after having a week-long, educational excursion in Bali. So, but
the Blue Mountains are only like 2 hours by train from Sydney. You can do it in a day, so you could pick that as an option. But yeah, so you're going to Sydney for 2 days, and then what?
Then we're going back. We're going back to the United States. We'll make our way to Tampa, then we'll make our way back to Puerto Rico, and we're going to be back. And I would have extended the trip. I almost had the kids convinced to go to Vancouver as well up in Canada. But the reality is that my kids actually don't take a break from school until mid-July. So they're going to be back in school, even though they go to an online school. So I have to be mindful of that. And then I also have to be mindful of the fact that my 16-year-old is now a working man and he's got to get back to his job. So we couldn't extend the trip for much longer than that. But it is going to be about 2.5 weeks.
But you're getting 2 new continents for you and your kids, right?
And,
Australia. And
I planned our trip specifically, so we have to go all the way around the world. Excuse me.
So all the way around the world. That's exciting. So you're gonna you're flying east to west or west to east?
We're going east to west. So we're going all the way east.
Right. So Tampa to London, London to Japan, Japan down to Bali, Bali to Australia, and then Australia back across the Pacific all the way back to Tampa, which that's going to have a few stops, I think. Have you booked that flight yet?
Yeah, I booked that flight. I think we have a stop actually in just Dallas-Fort Worth.
Wow. I flew that flight once back in 2013 from Sydney to Dallas. Yeah. That is a long flight. That's the longest flight I've ever flown in my life. It's like 18.5 hours on a plane.
Yeah. And honestly, I had to do it because I got American airline point. That one was all of these points, by the way, are different points. Like some of them were American Express points that I converted. Some of them were points that I already had on certain airlines. I basically just cashed in all of my credit card points into airline points. I accidentally made the mistake of converting some of those American Express points, actually quite a large chunk of American Express points, into Marriott Bonvoy points, thinking
I guess we're staying at a Marriott then.
Yeah, we have to stay at a Marriott now. We have a choice somewhere. We're staying at a Marriott.
We haven't. Well, I mean, I guess I don't have to. You probably.
No, I'm definitely staying at a Marriott at some point.
But that's the thing.
Of Marriott Bonvoy points now, and then I thought I was going to be able to convert those into airline points, but the actual burn rate on those is so high that it's just better I keep them into Bonvoy points. I also made the mistake of converting too many points into Delta points, and so now I have a vast collection of Delta points I can use.
I have more than 250,000 Delta miles right now.
How many? 250,000?
Yeah, more than 250,000.
Yeah, no, I have at this point I have like 160,000.
So I think this is actually really useful because the topic today is like planning a trip, and as fun as it is to discuss where we're going, like people do want to get value out of this, Jillian. So like,
yeah,
one thing that I've done to really cut back on travel, because people say to me like, how do you afford to do this? How can you do this? And yeah, I mean, this is not going to be free for either of us, even with using points. But
right,
like
you still have to pay taxes and fees and stuff like that, and it depends on how you use the points.
But if you have 160,000 Delta miles, that is enough to buy about $1,600 worth of airfare.
Right.
And you'll pay like $20 or something when you book it, but like you're not going to pay that much. In fact, recently I booked 3 tickets from Chattanooga to San Juan for myself and 2 friends with Delta Airline miles, and it cost me 120,000 miles and $30.15. Right, so it was like $10 a ticket plus the miles. And one way you can accumulate miles, if you know you're going to plan a trip in the future, one thing you can do is you can look for credit card bonuses. And that's where I got a lot of those miles that I converted recently. Was I got a new Amex Delta Reserve card, and if I spent $5,000 in the first 60 days, they gave me 120,000 miles.
Right, it's a lot.
That's $1,200 worth of airfare, 3 tickets to San Juan, right? And then the other thing is, by having that Delta Reserve card, which, by the way, has a big annual fee, so it has to be something that makes sense in your overall budget and all that stuff. But by having that Delta Reserve card, I actually get a discount when I redeem miles, so I get 15% off on redemptions. So if it would cost you $100,000 for a flight, it cost me $85,000.
It's worth it.
Yeah,
it's
so
worth, like I have the American Express Platinum card. That's where I got most of these points. And that is got a very hefty fee, annual fee.
I think it's $700 a year now.
It is. It's $700 a year, but I get like free. I get a ton of free stuff. First of all, I get a discount on my cell phone. I get a up to $240 a year in like streaming services for free.
Yeah.
I get Walmart Plus for free. I get Centurion Lounge access.
I love the Centurion Lounge. They just opened one in the Atlanta airport last month. It's unbelievable. And, but the thing is, so when you're thinking about planning vacations and travel, one strategy to look at is what credit cards make sense for me. And if you do that 6 months in advance, you can get these rewards, use those rewards to book that flight or whatever. And also, if you know somebody like that has the card you want, you might even be able to get a better reward by getting a referral from them, and then they get a bonus too. So, if you want the American Express Platinum card, maybe you should reach out to Jillian and she can send you a referral.
That's right. Please do. Have a referral link, but reach out to me because I'll get one just for you. I really will. But I would also say that I also used the Chase Sapphire card and converted a lot of those points, and the other one I did was the Capital One Venture card.
Yeah, and I think the strategy here is, and this is the thing that I would tell anyone, is to look at things like Points Guys, to look at videos like what we're doing right now, and like see what it is that you want. Like if you need hotels, like you could get a Platinum Amex and you get gold for gold status or something like that for Hilton and stuff, just for having that. But it might be better to get the Amex Hilton card. The Amex Hilton card is going to give you better Hilton points than just generic Amex points. So sometimes you have to think about what is your goal, and you might even get more than one, right? And that's what I've done. Like I had, I have a Delta Reserve card, but I also have that Platinum card you have, and I did it for the bonuses. And that's the other thing. You can do one Delta Reserve card, one Amex regular card, one Hilton card. You could have 3 or 4 Amexes. It does get expensive, but when you consider the value, that $600 annual fee, if you get $1,500 worth of airfare for it, it's still worth it for you.
So I want to end with this like tip that, and I want to be very clear on how long it took me to book all this stuff. Now you have to understand, I'm booking for 4 people from a very remote place. When it comes to flying, I don't live in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm not flying out of San Juan, which is a major airport. But let me even say something about San Juan. To fly out of San Juan, if you want to get out of the Caribbean or North America or even maybe South America, to get to Europe, there's only one flight to Europe every single day from San Juan, and it goes to Madrid. That's it. One flight to Madrid. You can't get to London. You can't get to Paris from San Juan. So that's why I fly out of the airport that's closest to me, which is Aguadilla. Aguadilla only goes to Tampa, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, and New Jersey and New York, and that's it. And
but that actually is a good point. I do spend a fair amount of time in the San Juan airport. My condo there is 4 minutes from San Juan airport. Yeah. Literally, it's like a $5 Uber ride. But I typically don't fly my major trips out of San Juan for that reason. I usually go back to Chattanooga because I live in a dual-based society where I live in 2 places at once. It's complicated. But I usually go back to Chattanooga and fly from there because then it's a short hop to Atlanta. And from Atlanta, I can get almost anywhere. But like you have to find that hub. And sometimes that's another tip, right? You might save money by going and flying direct out of Atlanta, or you might even save money by getting a one-way ticket somewhere or a round trip ticket to one place, like you're doing with London. Get to London first and then buy tickets, because one of the reasons we're going to Tokyo is the flight from Tokyo to Bali was really cheap. So it didn't
right.
really
And yeah. So and that's the thing. Jeff and I spent a ton of time researching, like, where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? One of my big priorities was to give my kids the opportunity to say they flew all the way around the world. So that was why I planned the trip the way I particularly planned it. I also wanted to give the kids a chance to go somewhere in Europe. My older kids have been to Paris. They've always wanted to go to England. So I thought that would be a good place to go. And then the other part of it is, and I do want to say this, even though I had all of these points and I paid with points, when it came to booking the trip home, it was very, very clear that American Airlines had the best deal. The deal was 35,000 points per ticket to fly on Qantas and American Airlines from Sydney to the United States. And
that's a great deal. That's a great
deal. Amazing deal. And I didn't have enough points to do that. So I thought, well, I could buy the tickets, and I did the math on buying all of the tickets. It was going to cost about $4,500. But to buy more points than I actually needed to buy 150,000 points was $3,000. So I just bought the American Airline points. I still have points. I like these points. The great thing about a lot of these points is they never expire. It depends.
Well, be careful with American Airlines points though, because they do expire. If you don't have any activity in American Airlines.
So the reason why I don't have any American Airline points right now is because I used all my American Airline points for other trips.
Right.
So I'm going to use those points. I'm not worried about it. But I now have a ton of Delta points because I made the mistake of.
Well, Delta points don't expire, but the thing is with points, you do want to use them because they can be devalued. Right now, Delta points are worth a little over 1 cent per point, according to the points guy. But they could easily make them worth a half a cent per point or something.
Very easily.
By just changing things. And if you get like the American Airlines special you're talking about, those American Airlines points are worth a lot more for that particular flight than they are for most flights, which is another pro tip when you're planning this stuff. But I don't want to spend a whole bunch more time talking about that because we do need to wrap up in a second.
We do.
Tell everyone about the rest of my epic journey because
please do. I totally didn't even realize we hadn't done that. You should.
So I get to Bali and I'm leaving Bali, and unlike Jillian's kids, I voted for Singapore. So I'm flying from Bali to Singapore. And the reason I picked Singapore, honestly, is I was able to get a business class ticket for $285 from Bali to Singapore. I was like, that seems like a good enough excuse to go to Singapore, which is a new country for me, right? And only my second city state, right? Because the only city states in the world are essentially the Vatican and Singapore, right? Maybe Hong Kong, depending on if you count that or not. But
explain that to me. Singapore is like not just like an independent country. Explain that to me how it's a city.
Well, it's an independent country, but it's actually just a single city. Like it's not. Yeah, it's a big city, but it's just a city, really. It's the closest thing to a city state besides the Vatican, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But anyway, so Singapore, and I'm going to spend 5 days in Singapore. I have not even decided what I'm going to do there, but I've heard really good things about Singapore. I think it's going to be really interesting. The airport in Singapore, by the way, has, if I'm reading correctly, the tallest indoor waterfall in the world. It has an IMAX. They actually give 2.5-hour tours of the airport to people that are on layovers. No, that's in Seoul, South Korea that they do that. I mean, it's crazy, right? So the Singapore airport is supposed to be amazing. The South Korea one is also amazing. But I was getting ahead of myself because when I leave Singapore, I'm flying to Honolulu, Hawaii with a 15.5-hour layover in Seoul, South Korea. So I'm going to get to go into South Korea. I'm going to get the tour of the airport, apparently, also, now that I've talked about it. And I'm going to be able to see a little bit, have dinner, look at a temple or two, but basically get to taste what it's like to be in South Korea just for a minute, and then fly to Honolulu, where I'm going to be spending 1 day at Waikiki Beach and I'm going to go to Pearl Harbor because I missed that last time I was in Honolulu.
Oh, Pearl Harbor's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why I really wanted to get back to Honolulu. So once I see that, I'll be cool with Honolulu. Then I'm going to fly one day later to Maui, and I'm going to spend a full week in Maui. And one of my friends, I didn't even tell you this yet, Jillian, one of my friends, John, is actually going to fly down to down to Maui and hang out with me for a week. In Maui, we're going to do some fun stuff there. And while I'm there, I'm going to record a podcast with Brandon Turner. So that'll be fun also. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm going to go from there back to Chattanooga. So that means I'm going to be gone about 4 weeks in total. And I'm going to have to do some work while I'm there because, Jillian, I don't know if you thought about this or not, but we have a few personal commitments in our life, right? Like one, we have our happy hour once a month, a free happy hour, which if you guys
Yes, you can join me. It's
if
free.
you guys aren't doing that, you need to show up at the happy hour because the last one was amazing. And it's completely free. So that happens. And then we also have a meeting while I'm gone of our mastermind. So the Extraordinary Life Mastermind. And the people that are in the mastermind are so amazing that I'm going to show up for them no matter where I am in the world. So, and by the way, if you don't know about our mastermind, you should definitely check that out too. And the best way to do that, I think, is probably just to jump over to the Last Life Ever Facebook group, Last Life Ever private group. And we haven't done this yet, but before this comes out, I'll make sure to pin a link to information about the mastermind right there in the group so people can see it. So, Jillian, that is my vacation. Anything else you want to share about yours?
I do not, but I do want to remind everybody to live the best of your last life ever. See you next time.